All right. It's time for Buckeye Grove Instant Access.
It's about time.
With the latest breaking news, analysis, and much, much more from around the world of Ohio State. Brought to you by BuckeyeGrove.com and the Unscripted Ohio Podcast Network.
You're so money and you don't even know it.
Let's move quickly and hand it off to our host, Kevin Noon.
It's time to start running!
Hey, welcome to the BIA Podcast. I am your host, Kevin Noon, and it is the Buckeye Grove Instant Access Podcast. We call it BIA. If you're an Ohio State fan, of course you are. You're listening to this podcast. You know that also means best in America, something that Ohio State has. Let everybody else have DBU. Ohio State is BIA. And we're going to be joined by a couple of people who are BIA in my book. Joseph Hastings, our great recruiting analyst, as well as 2022 tight end Bennett Christian out of Ackworth, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. Let's just get right to it, and I'm going to bring them both onto the show. Joseph first, welcome to the show, and thanks for bringing Bennett with you.
Absolutely, Kevin. Once again, great to get back on the podcast and talk with you. And yeah, it's a great day. Us being Cowboys fans, Dak Prescott being signed too, so I'm in a really good mood right now.
Well, I think that it's crazy when you look at how that went. We were looking, and not to get sidetracked, and he was going to be franchised or whatever, and then lo and behold, the deal comes through. Hopefully he lives up to all those numbers, but we'll get to that on another show. But I want to welcome Bennett in. Bennett has been committed to the Buckeyes for some time, and we're going to go through all of that. Bennett, welcome to the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on, guys. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Joseph, you are leading off here. I will let you fire off with the first question, and we'll go 10, 12 minutes with Bennett and let him get on his way. Go for it, Joseph.
No doubt about it. And Bennett, just starting right off, man, you're coming off the season in which your team went 11-1. Just really impressive stuff what you all were able to do. And you're obviously looking to cap off your high school career with the state championship. That's the dream goal for everyone. What have you been working on this offseason to try and help your team get to those heights?
Right. Just really kind of the same thing as always, man. Just how good can I make myself and how much can I help my team? Really just trying to fill up that leader spot even more so than last year. Try to get the guys fired up in the weight room, get stronger, get faster personally. Just going to training all the time, trying to get my body right, be stronger, faster, just, perfect the craft every day, man. That's really just the overall goal.
Yeah, you kind of talk about some of the things that you want to improve on, and you've already kind of talked about leadership. I'm going to go off script here a little bit because you kind of answered my question right there. I mean, how do you go about being a leader at your school, and how does that kind of carry over in terms of maybe, being a more vocal guy in terms of the recruiting class? I know you guys all have your text messages and everything else. I mean, how do you really feel that you personify leadership yourself?
Right. I mean, going through school as an Ohio State command, it kind of turns some heads a lot, and so it's something that I noticed. So, really just trying to put myself make myself like a good person. I want to that's why I say go in the weight room and work out hard. Maybe the younger guys, the freshmen, will model that after me, and to kind of create that just that hard work ethic atmosphere that we need at school. And based off the class, just kind of step up in that leader role. Reach out to guys who are targets for the our class that Coach Wilson or whoever tells me to reach out to them, and reach out to them, try to get them on board, and it's something that I keep mindful of is to be the best me I can be, and just do what's best for me and the team.
Now, Bennett, one thing I did want to talk to you about outside of recruiting, outside of your football team and your contributions to them, is the rankings were released a few weeks ago. You remained a 3-star prospect and on Rivals, although a really strong case could be made that you are a 4-star prospect. Do you really pay too much of attention to the rankings? And if so, does that motivate you in a sense to work even harder in the weight room or work even harder on the football field?
Right. And the thing about that, I mean, there's if I'm not a 4-star in Rivals yet, obviously I want that for me, and something that all recruits, if they said they don't want that, I mean, obviously they're probably lying or some sort. If they said they don't look at the rankings, I mean, everyone does, and we all talk about it. We really get every once in a while. And I'm a 4-star. I'm the 247, but not yet on Rivals. So obviously, I don't worry too much about it. Just kind of go through my thing, try to be great. Hopefully to get some rivals camps that I really wanted to get to. I know I was going to go to one in Atlanta when it got canceled during this time last year, and I was really bummed about that because I was training really hard for it. But yeah, something that like obviously I do look at, but it doesn't bother me like where I would get upset about it or anything like that.
Absolutely, man, and that really kind of speaks to your mindset and where your priorities are. Which is on helping your team get better and helping to get Ohio State's 2022 class better. Now, just looking at your recruitment in general, you're essentially kind of done with the recruiting process in terms of you just being able to focus on recruiting for the Buckeyes and on your own craft. How have things kind of just been going with Ohio State staff in terms of communication with them, what they've been saying to you?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that's really about Coach Day and Coach Wilson, they've recruited me the same since we first talked until today. Like, there's not been a day where they haven't recruited me just as hard. Like, I'm uncommitted basically with how they treat me. And so, like, it's just honest about those guys, how much they, like, really care about me and still trying to make me a priority, even though I already said I'm going there locked in. So, yeah, it just really shows what kind of guys they are, really just trying to make sure I can deal with all the social stuff of it, because obviously being an Ohio State Buckeye committee, it comes with a lot of eyes, like I said earlier, and so like how to deal with that and how to make your platform in the good way. Like I'm myself, I'm a man of faith, so I know I have a lot of followers. I like tweeting about my relationship with God a lot, and kind of like having that brand is kind of do the right thing with it. That's what Coach Day always preaches.
You're listening to the BIA Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. We're joined by 2022 tight end commit Bennett Christian, and as well, we have Joseph Hastings on the line. And, you talk about, your relationships with Coach Day and Coach Wilson. I think we all, everybody talks about Coach Ryan Day and everything there, but we don't maybe talk as much about Coach Wilson. What is he like? What is that message from him? Former head coach at Indiana, everybody sees him as, business first and business second. I mean, is he a funny guy? Does he tell jokes or whatever? I mean, what's Coach Kevin Wilson like?
Well, Coach Wilson's obviously an amazing man. That's why I'm committed to him. But I mean, obviously, I should say I wasn't committed to the university first, but obviously he's a big part of why I'm committed. But beside the point, Coach Wilson, he really is a funny guy, and he can talk, and he's just really good to get along with. Like, he's someone like I could really just sit down and talk for like 35 or 40 minutes with, which we do sometimes. He just really made me like, I can't even say, like, he's made me more of a confident player in some sense, because of the way like we go on Zooms, he teaches me stuff. He always has me thinking. It's something like he'll ask me like all these like questions. I thought I had a high football IQ. No, he is brilliant with football and all that. So obviously he's somebody I have my trust in. He's a really good guy. I really can't say enough good stuff about Coach Wilson.
Now, Bennett, we were talking about your relationship with the coaches, Coach Day, Coach Wilson, but we also know that you've been chopping it up a lot with your future teammates. One of them obviously being Benji Gosnell, who you played an important role in helping Ohio State to land back in the fall. Can you just kind of talk to me about your relationship with Benji? What do you all talk about? What's kind of like the daily conversations like with your fellow tight end commit?
Already, like, we never even met and we're best friends. Like, I feel like you could tell me anything at this point. And it's crazy to think, because it feels like we've known each other for years, but really, like, we've never even seen each other in person. It's just wild to think about. I mean, I can't describe how good of a relationship we already have. It's something that I'm really excited, because having that when you're going in, like, it's like a confidence booster. It's like just knowing that you have someone you're already close with and can like help get through like freshman year, not knowing anybody. Like, it's really like comforting, and I'm excited to like be there with them and make each other better, because we're gonna compete and we're gonna like hit each other at the same time, like love each other because we're brothers already, and having that is really good to know.
As you sit there and you look at the current team for the Buckeyes, I mean, obviously they've got a very prolific tight end coming back in Jeremy Rucker. Do you watch Ohio State games, and do you really break down what it is that they're doing with them? Obviously, you have the opportunity to talk to the coaches and kind of go through game films, as not only your own, but maybe what they're doing. And do you see some things in your own game that you can pattern after what you see them doing with Ruck?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like the main thing positive of Rucker, he's so physical, but yet he's one of the best like passing, receiving tight ends in the nation. Which is really, a tight end is both. That's why I hate when like people put the term blocking and receiving on one, Because really, if you're tight end, you should be able to block and catch and stuff just as well. But I mean, Rutgers is the prime example of a complete tight end. Like he's probably one of or the best route runner, yard after catch, receiver, but also so physical. Like he'll put people on the ground, whether it's an outside linebacker or defensive end, and it's just so impressive to watch. And I love watching his film. And same thing with Luke Farrell. I mean, he's so dominant. Like it's just watching film really with Coach Wilson and breaking down on Zoom. It's just like it shocks me how good they are going to school like on Clemson, just embarrassing them. You know, it just makes me excited that I can be developed by someone who produces that kind of talent. You know, I'm excited and really excited to be a part of it.
As we look at this recruiting class, I mean, I would say it's safe to assume that Ohio State is done recruiting tight ends for 22, with 2 of you guys already verbally committed. But when you look at the class of 22, who are you maybe talking up that's not committed at this point? And everybody's got to come to their own decision. But what is your message to guys that you talk to that may be interested in Ohio State? What do you tell them in terms of why Ohio State was right for you, maybe even?
Yeah, like the main thing I tell those guys is just like, man, look what Ohio State has done with players. Like, I think Dallin Hayden, I think it's got recruiting very hard already. And the one thing the main thing to tell them, like, dude, just look how they recruit compared to other schools, because honestly, it's like no one else. He agrees. Like they take account of your future, not only your football stuff. They see you more as a player than a man, which is really important, and it should be for all people. You know, it's just something I'm very excited about to be a part of. And I mean, I really we always talk about how the thing with Ohio State is just culture. And the coaches talk about it, and it's just I'm just so blessed to be a part of it. It's such an amazing school, such an amazing program.
It's interesting, Bennett, especially during this time right now that, with the dead period still being in effect and there's still, contact limitations between 2022 prospects and coaches. Someone could make the argument that people like yourself, commits at schools can play a pretty big role in helping targets land at a certain program, even more of a role than some of the coaches can, just because you have no restrictions whatsoever. You have no limitations. Do you feel like it's kind of an advantage that you have being a commit like yourself to help recruit, since you have none of those restrictions whatsoever? Oh,
for sure. I know. I think, obviously, like you just said, the coaches can't do everything. And as being a recruit, kind of having, the student-athlete vibe of it, they can kind of relate to you better than a coach would. And I feel like it's more of a trust thing, because obviously I do have trust Coach Ryan Day. There's no doubt about that. But, just having someone their own age talk to you about it, have a real conversation, I think, just definitely hits more just as well as a conversation with Coach Day, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir. And we mentioned in that previous question there about the dead period. It's a tough topic to bring up because it's been extended multiple times. There's no real clear end in sight, even though the current deadline the current dead period is supposed to end May 31st. It could potentially be extended again. What were your thoughts on when it got, extended a month and a half? What was your reaction to it?
Oh man, it was just dreadful. And it's been, I never met Coach Day or Coach Wilson, so I'm waiting for the day, man. I mean, I just want to meet the guys committed in the class, and I'm ready for it to be over for sure.
And do you feel like that kind of impacts? Obviously, you're committed to Ohio State, but do you feel like that impacts an uncommitted target interest in the school, or let's say there's a player in let's say Nicholas Singleton, for example, in Pennsylvania, who's closer to Penn State than he is to Ohio State. Do you kind of feel like the dead period helps those closer schools in a sense, or what are your thoughts on that?
Man, it definitely has a huge, impact on the recruit, because we can't. I mean, obviously, guys are waiting just for this to be over to visit places, and someone like that who's maybe closer to a school, maybe just be done and ready to get it over with, and can't visit. So guess what? They're going to make the decision just now. That's kind of what happened with Will Johnson, I think. He was really interested in us, but us kicking pushed back. He's good ties to Michigan. And so, that's the best place for him, I guess. The best selection for him. But, I mean, who knows? I think that may have been different if there wasn't a dead period going on right now. But, you never know.
When you look at the class, I mean, you commit before some of these other guys come in, but then you guys add Quinn Ewers, you add Caleb Burton. you see these other offensive pieces around you. As an offensive player, what does that mean, having that quarterback already, into the class or whatever? And then I'm going to ask a question on the back of that I think that I already know what you're going to say here. Just how good can this class end up being? I mean, it's already number one on all the services. How good can it be?
Yeah, I mean, definitely having Quinn and someone like of that caliber in the class, like it's really reassuring knowing you have someone that good you can play with. So, definitely plays a huge impact. And, I think this class can be better than this year's Alabama class for sure. If we just keep going the way we're going, I think the sky's the limit for us.
For sure, man. And you talked about the sky's being the limit for this 2022 class here, but looking at Ohio State's current group of players and looking at their 2021 season, they're going to be having a QB with limited experience starting, but they're obviously going to be viewed as the favorite to win the Big Ten yet again. Bennett, how far do you think this current group of Buckeyes can go?
Man, I think a national championship should be the least that we're going to shoot for. This is a squad that can really just do anything, and with the right coaching staff that we already have, I think we can do something really special this year.
And this is way too far out, but I'm going to ask it. It wasn't on our pre-interview questions list here, but what's your score prediction for when Ohio State takes on the team up north? They obviously couldn't play them last season. What's your score prediction for that game later this year, Bennett?
A ton to a little. I can't put an exact number on it because it's going to be a blowout, just like every other year, pretty much. But no, I've had to give a score prediction. I'll give it. I say we put up 63, put up 20, 28, maybe. That's generous. So yeah.
Well, that certainly is a message, but, we're going to end this interview with one final question. I mean, we get the opportunity to ask a lot of guys that we talk to, what is your message to Buckeye Nation? I mean, obviously, you guys get the chance to talk to people on social or whatever, but, here you are with a bigger stage. What is your message?
Man, I just want to say thank you. That's the main thing, is just thank you, like, just for accepting me in to the class. And just like a kid from Georgia going to Ohio, obviously it's gonna be a lot different. So like already having all the fans and stuff just reach out to me, say nice stuff. It's just like I can't explain how much it means to me. There's nowhere else in the country that I think the fans care more about the players than I've seen with the Ohio State. So message here is just thank y'all for accepting me and loving me and for the family. It feels great.
And there you go. So, we've gone about 15 minutes plus with Bennett, and I think everybody now has a real good idea of what he's about and that the Buckeyes are getting a good one. Joseph, you got anything else?
Sure.
Absolutely. I mean, Bennett's somebody that I saw back in October when I went to Georgia, and, just a great young man. We really appreciate you being able to speak with us today, and your future's bright, man. Thank you for being on today.
Yes, sir. Thank you all so much for having me. It really means a lot, y'all.
And I want to thank Bennett once again for being part of the show, as well as Joseph. On the other side of this quick break, we will talk a little bit about Ohio State's Big Ten basketball tournament run that will be starting on Thursday. Keep it locked in here on the BIA Podcast. Egg Water Conditioning has been treating well in city water in Central Ohio with American-made water filtration products for over 60 years. Have a water quality problem? The water treatment experts at Hague know how to solve it. Not sure if your water softener is working? They will test, inspect, and sanitize any brand of water softener for only $20. Schedule a system checkup or water test today by calling 614-836-2195 or visit them online at HagueH2O.com. That's HagueH2O.com. Welcome back to the BIA Podcast. I want to thank Bennett Christian and Joseph Hastings for joining us in the first segment of the show, talking about a little bit of recruiting and, what makes Bennett Christian tick and everything else. Going to be a good one. Just excited to get out on the road here, hopefully in a couple of months, and see some of these kids on the camp circuit and maybe even stop in for some spring practices in areas where they do have that, unlike Ohio. But I digress. I'm not going to get into that right now. The Big Ten men's basketball tournament starts today. A pair of games, Minnesota Northwestern, Nebraska Penn State. Ohio State starts on Thursday. Now, Ohio State certainly was in every position to not have to play on Thursday, and then a 4-game losing streak happened. And, it's nobody's going to sit there and say that Ohio State didn't have a difficult 8-game run to finish the season, but it's the Big Ten. Everybody had a difficult 8-game run to finish the season, and Ohio State, in its 4 losses, 3 of them were games that were very winnable. And that's not to sit there and say that the opponent was inferior or anything. No, none of that. But games that Ohio State let get away from them, they just, for whatever reason, were not able to seal the deal. Bad decisions along the way. I mean, honestly, only the Iowa game is one that I would sit there and say that Ohio State was not in it at any time. So now, for all of Ohio State's efforts, it would have to play an extra game if it wants to win the Big Ten tournament. So we turn our attention to Minnesota Northwestern, the 12-13 game, which will be the feeder game into Ohio State's Thursday game. The second game of the day, it will follow the Michigan State-Maryland game, the 8-9 game. You look at Minnesota and Northwestern, and you sit there and you see teams that are kind of have a little bit of different fates at this point. Minnesota, in a lot of ways, looks like it is kind of packed it in. They have really kind of fallen apart down the stretch with, just not looking good whatsoever. I mean, it was a Minnesota team that came out, had some success, had a big win in overtime against Iowa early in the season. Certainly beat Ohio State January 3rd by 16 in Williams Arena at the Barn. But then you look at them now, and they are losers of, I'm looking at their schedule now, 2, 4, 6, 7 in a row, losing games to Rutgers, Penn State, Nebraska. They lost a game to Northwestern at the end of February, 67-59. Got absolutely thumped by Illinois by 31. Just not playing very good basketball at this point. And, you have to kind of wonder if they just have checked out. It's a proud program, a program that has had success through the years, maybe has not been able to break through since joining the Big Ten in terms of just huge success. And then on the other side, you look at a Northwestern team that's won its last 3. A 1-point win against Nebraska to end the regular season, a 5-point win against Maryland, and then, of course, that win over Minnesota. So it will be an interesting game to see for certain in terms of who's going to come out of it. The thing is that each of those teams has a win over Ohio State this season. So this isn't necessarily a case of where you're looking at a double-digit seed coming out to be some sort of sacrificial lamb for Ohio State. Both of these teams have beaten Ohio State. Granted, both of them were early in the season. I mean, Northwestern's win was in December, and then as I said that Minnesota got Ohio State just a couple of days later. Maybe when the Buckeyes hadn't figured a couple things out, and then Ohio State, of course, got red hot. And then didn't figure anything out down the stretch. So if Ohio State gets through that game, what do the Buckeyes get as their prize? A rematch against Purdue. And we know that is just a bad matchup for Ohio State. It just really is. The Buckeyes 0-2 against the Boilermakers this season. And, they lost by 2 in Columbus. And I'm trying to find the other game here on the schedule. And they lost by 7 in West Lafayette, and that was a December game. So neither of the games were necessarily blowouts. It wasn't that Ohio State just wasn't able to go in and compete. It was just that the Buckeyes weren't able to seal the deal. Kind of like what they're doing right now. Unable to close teams out, make smart decisions at the end, maybe getting out there, rushing shots, lower percentage shots, forgetting to find E.J. Liddell down in the paint, try and finish the game off at the line. And, they just, for whatever reason, aren't getting it done. But now you get to reset for the tournament. You kind of know where you stand. You play until you lose, and then the NC2A tournament's on the back end. it'll be interesting to see how the Buckeyes approach this. And Griffin and myself will be heading out to Indianapolis here later today. We may or may not head over to the arena to watch these two games. Kind of leaning toward doing it. You know, we have the credential. I think this is going to be a Big Ten tournament for the ages. A lot of potential great games on the docket that could happen. I mean, we don't know how things are going to go, if we're going to see a lot of chalk or not. But how about a Friday game of Michigan State versus Michigan? I'd like to see that one again. I'd like to see that Ohio State-Purdue game just as a unbiased observer, just to see if the Buckeyes can get through that. I'm not really that excited about Indiana or Rutgers advancing to play Illinois. We'll just kind of pencil that one through. I would like to see potentially Wisconsin, Iowa again. Wisconsin, when they're on, can be pretty fun to watch. I mean, and let me preface that by saying watching Wisconsin basketball is rarely fun. They don't play that type of 90s or anything like that. But when Micah Potter's playing well, when they're getting those outside shots to fall, they can do a lot of things there. But, what is Micah Potter going to be able to do against Luka Garza? Your Big Ten player of the year. And then, you get into Saturday, and who knows really at that point? I mean, could we see Michigan? And if Ohio State's able to, win too, could we see Ohio State, Michigan again? I mean, honestly, Ohio State had Michigan right there within a possession through most of the game. There was never really a lead larger than, I think it was 5. An unfortunate turnover, kind of a dumb turnover with a behind-the-back pass that was not needed to be made, led to an and one on the other end. I mean, you're looking at a 5-6 point swing, depending on what Ohio State could have potentially put up. And that was that. But I would love to see Ohio State, Michigan again. I think that would be a lot of fun. I think that would be a tough ticket to get with reduced seating at Lucas Oil on Saturday. On the other side, Illinois, Iowa is certainly exciting. But, do we see chalk happen all the time in the Big Ten tournament? We have to a certain extent, but we've also seen those double-digit seeds ride through. That doesn't bode well for Ohio State. If Ohio State is still reeling and kind of playing in a fog, that could be bad for Wisconsin. Getting the winner of Nebraska, Penn State. Nebraska certainly has been pretty bad this year. I mean, they did pull off that big win that I talked about against Minnesota. You have to like Penn State there. Penn State's kind of a curious team in terms of which Penn State team shows up. I mean, you had an interim coach there. They certainly, players are always going to be all about the guy that's coached them for that year. They'd love to see him get, elevated to more of a full-time capacity. We'll see. So you just don't know at that point. Right now, if I had to pick a winner for the Big Ten tournament, I'm going to say Illinois. I think Illinois, even with Iowa having Luka Garza, Michigan winning the regular season, everything else, the return of Ayo Dosunmu, added with Kofi Cockburn, whatever, Coburn. Sorry, I haven't had my morning coffee yet. I just think that they are capable of sustaining a run, and they only would have to win 3 games. And, I think that if they're able to just even get to Saturday, they probably solidify their number 1 seed. They're sitting there on the 1 line. I think that that's enough to get it done. But, if I had to kind of make my pick right now, I don't know. I would have Illinois coming out of the bottom half of the bracket and out of the top half of the bracket. And I know Ohio State's there, but I don't know if Ohio State can win 4 games to win the title. I just don't know. I expect to see a much better effort come Thursday from them. And I expect to see them play well on Friday if they're able to get through and survive and advance from Thursday. I just don't know if they can get all the way there. I have a hard time picking that team up north. I know I've already dropped the Michigan word. It doesn't matter. I'm not on the Ohio State team. I don't care. They're not going to make me do push-ups. I don't know. I think we could see something very chalky at the end in terms of Michigan, Illinois, and I like Illinois getting them at the end. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Be sure to let us know over in the Horseshoe Lounge over at BuckeyeGrove.com or in the comments section wherever you're picking up this podcast at, whether it be YouTube or Stitcher or iTunes. We'd love to hear from you guys. But we'll touch base at the end of the tournament and kind of wrap things up and see where things are in terms of going into the NC2A tournament. But I want to thank everybody for being part of the show and listening. I want to again thank Joseph and Bennett Christian for being part of the show in the first segment. I want to thank y'all for listening. Be sure to keep it here on BuckeyeGrove.com and the Unscripted Ohio Podcast Network, and we will talk to you here very soon.
Be sure to stay up to date with Buckeye Grove Instant Access when the news breaks or after the big game, exclusively at BuckeyeGrove.com or anytime on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher as part of the Unscripted Ohio Podcast Network. Hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the know and never miss a single episode.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to click on that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing, and come visit us over at BuckeyeGrove.com for all the best Ohio State information on the web.